Right now, as you watch this, there are millions of people across the world doing something in the first minutes of their morning that is quietly, silently damaging their heart. Not once in a while. Not when they're stressed. Every single morning, like clockwork, without ever questioning it. And the terrifying part? Most of them feel completely fine. They think they're healthy. They think their routine is normal. What I'm about to share with you in the next few minutes has the potential to completely change how you start your day, and possibly save your life, or the life of someone you love. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will never look at your morning the same way again. My name is Dr. James Harlow. I've been practicing cardiology for over 22 years. I've sat across from thousands of patients in my office. I've held the hands of families who didn't understand why their husband, their mother, their brother collapsed without warning. And over again, when I trace back the timeline, I find the same pattern. A pattern so ordinary, so embedded in daily life that most people laugh when I first mention it, until they see the data, until they understand what's actually happening inside their body during those critical first hours of the morning. Let me paint you a picture. You wake up. Maybe your alarm goes off. Maybe you wake naturally. Before your feet even hit the floor, your hand reaches for your phone. You scroll through notifications, emails, maybe the news. Already your brain is processing stress. Then you drag yourself to the kitchen. You pour a cup of coffee, strong, black, no time for breakfast yet, and you drink it before you've eaten anything. This is your morning. I know because I've heard it hundreds of times. And if that sounds like you, I need you to pay close attention to every word I say next. Here's what's actually happening inside your body the moment you wake up. Your cardiovascular system doesn't just power on gently like a lamp. It surges. During the early morning hours, particularly between 6 and 10 in the morning, your body triggers a natural hormonal response that prepares you for the day. Cortisol, the stress hormone, peaks sharply. Adrenaline rises. Blood pressure begins to climb. Heart rate increases. Your blood also becomes more prone to clotting during this window, a physiological holdover from our evolutionary past when morning meant danger. Scientists have a name for this: the morning cardiovascular surge. And decades of research have shown that this period carries the highest risk for heart attack, cardiac arrest, and stroke out of any time of the entire day. Think about that for a moment. Your body is already under its most vulnerable cardiovascular state before you've even had breakfast. The system is primed, the pressure is elevated, the arteries are tighter, and then, right in the middle of this critical window, millions of people pile on habits that push the system even further into the danger zone. Before I go further, I want to make sure you don't miss what's coming next in this channel, because this is just the beginning. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it right now. Hit that button below, and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching this from? I want to know who's watching, because this conversation matters, and your heart matters. Now, let's get back to what I was telling you. I had a patient, I'll call him Robert, 53 years old. He looked healthy. He worked out 3 times a week, maintained a reasonable weight, didn't smoke. He came to me because of occasional headaches in the morning and what he described as feeling wired when he woke up, even before coffee. When I ran his ambulatory blood pressure monitor, a device that tracks pressure continuously over 24 hours, what I found was striking. Every single morning between 7 and 9, his systolic blood pressure was spiking into dangerous territory. Not during exercise, not during stress at work, in the morning, in his own home, doing what he thought was a completely normal routine. When I asked him to walk me through his morning, it took less than 3 minutes to identify the problem. Coffee immediately after waking, before breakfast, before water, before anything else. His phone in his hand within 60 seconds of opening his eyes, processing emails, reading the news, already in reaction mode. No hydration, no gentle transition. His body was already in a cortisol surge, and he was adding gasoline to a fire. Robert is not exceptional. He's the rule, not the exception. I've seen this pattern in executives and teachers, in retired professionals and young adults. The age changes. The specific morning routine changes slightly. But the core pattern, physiological stress compounded by behavioral habits, remains the same. Let me explain the mechanism, because understanding this is what makes the change feel urgent and real. When you consume caffeine on an empty stomach, particularly strong coffee within the first 30 to 60 minutes of waking, the caffeine directly stimulates your adrenal glands to produce even more cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate accelerates. Your blood vessels constrict. They become narrower, tighter. Your blood pressure rises further, and because your stomach is empty, the caffeine absorbs faster and more completely than it would with food. This is not a small bump. In some individuals, this combination can push blood pressure by 15 to 25 points higher than their baseline in a very short window. Now, add dehydration. Most people sleep 7 to 8 hours without drinking a drop of water. By the time you wake up, you are already mildly dehydrated. Dehydration thickens the blood, causes the heart to work harder to push it through the circulatory system, and can independently elevate blood pressure. You are essentially asking your heart to pump thicker fluid through tighter pipes while a hormone storm is already raging. And then there's the phone. I know it sounds like I'm being dramatic, but I'm being precise. Within seconds of seeing a work email, a difficult message, or even just alarming news, your amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, fires. It triggers another cascade of cortisol. Your heart rate increases again. Blood pressure nudges higher, and this is all happening before 7 in the morning, before you've spoken a word to another person, before the day has technically even started. What does sustained exposure to this pattern look like over time? This is where it becomes serious. Repeated daily spikes in blood pressure are not benign. The arterial walls are exposed to mechanical stress every time pressure surges. Over months and years, this contributes to what we call endothelial dysfunction, damage to the inner lining of blood vessels. The arteries begin to stiffen, small amounts of inflammation accumulate, plaque builds more easily, the risk of arterial narrowing increases, and in arteries already compromised by age, genetics, or diet, this daily morning assault can accelerate the process significantly. What feels like a normal morning is, in biological terms, a recurring physiological event that chips away at cardiovascular resilience day after day, year after year. I've watched patients dismiss this because they feel fine, and I understand the logic. If nothing dramatic happens, the risk feels theoretical. But that's precisely the nature of cardiovascular disease. It is silent. It builds in the background. And when it finally announces itself, it does so dramatically, with a chest clutching pain, a sudden numbness in the arm, a loss of consciousness that sends someone to the emergency room or never returns home at all. I am not trying to frighten you without reason. I am trying to give you information that most people never receive until it's too late. I had another patient, Maria, 61, a retired teacher. She had no history of heart disease. She came in after a brief episode of dizziness and what she described as her heart skipping. When we monitored her, we found episodes of atrial fibrillation, an irregular heart rhythm, clustering specifically in the morning hours. Her morning routine? Coffee immediately upon waking, then a high-sodium breakfast of processed meats, white bread, and cheese, followed by her phone, where she managed her daughter's complicated family situation every single morning. 3 stressors, stacked, in the same 90-minute window, every day. When I explained the connection to her, she sat quietly for a long time. Then she asked me something I'll never forget. Why did nobody ever tell me this? And I didn't have a good answer. Because it's the kind of information that falls into the gap between what medicine treats, diagnosed conditions, and what medicine should be doing more of, which is preventing them from forming in the first place. The specific habits that I see most consistently contributing to this dangerous morning pattern are the following: consuming caffeine, especially strong coffee, on an empty stomach in the first 30 to 60 minutes after waking. Eating an ultra-processed breakfast that is high in sodium, cured meats, commercial white bread, fast food, salty cheeses. These foods cause fluid retention and can independently spike blood pressure within hours. Immediately engaging with a phone or screen in a reactive way. Checking news, managing conflicts, responding to stress-inducing content before the nervous system has had time to settle. Skipping water entirely upon waking, which compounds dehydration from overnight. And remaining sedentary. Staying in bed scrolling, or going directly from bed to a desk without any physical transition. None of these habits individually seems catastrophic. It's the combination, the timing, and the daily repetition that creates the risk profile I'm describing. This is what the research shows. A 2019 study published in the journal Hypertension found that morning blood pressure variability is one of the strongest independent predictors of cardiovascular events, stronger than clinic blood pressure readings. A 2021 meta-analysis in the European Heart Journal confirmed that the incidence of both myocardial infarction and stroke is significantly higher in the morning hours, and that modifiable behaviors in this window matter enormously. The morning is not just another part of the day. From a cardiovascular standpoint, it is the most consequential part. Now, I want to tell you about a different kind of patient interaction. One that actually gives me hope and reminds me why I do this work. I had a patient named David, 58, accountant, classic type A personality. He came to me with persistently elevated blood pressure that was not responding well to medication. His readings at the clinic were moderately high. His home readings in the evening were actually reasonable. But his morning readings, taken at home on a device I asked him to use, were consistently alarming. We made a single week of targeted changes. I asked David to do 4 things. First, drink 2 full glasses of water before anything else every morning. Before coffee, before food, before his phone. Second, wait at least 90 minutes after waking before having his first cup of coffee. Third, not touch his phone for the first 20 minutes after waking. He could listen to music, step outside, stretch, anything else. Fourth, replace his processed breakfast with something simple. Eggs, whole grain toast, fruit, or oatmeal with minimal added sodium. Nothing extreme, nothing expensive. Just 4 adjustments to the first 90 minutes of his day. At his follow-up 3 weeks later, his morning blood pressure readings had dropped by an average of 18 points systolic. 18 points. Without changing his medication. Without a dramatic overhaul of his diet or lifestyle, just by modifying the sequence and composition of his morning routine. He stood in my office looking at those numbers like I had performed some kind of magic. I hadn't. I had simply understood the mechanism and intervened at the right point. What I'm about to tell you is the clearest, most direct version of what I wish every one of my patients knew. The problem isn't the coffee itself. The problem isn't your phone itself. The problem is the timing, the combination, and the daily repetition during the most cardiovascularly vulnerable window of your entire 24-hour cycle. The morning cardiovascular surge is real. It is documented and it cannot be eliminated. It is your biology, but it can be respected. And when you stop stacking inflammatory habits on top of a system that is already under physiological pressure, the results can be profound. Here is what I want you to take away from everything I've shared today. When you wake up tomorrow morning, before you do anything else, drink water. Before coffee, before food, before your phone. 2 glasses. Give your blood something to work with. Thin it, hydrate the system, reduce the viscosity your heart has to push against. Then wait. Give your cortisol levels 20 to 30 minutes to begin their natural decline before introducing caffeine. The science is clear. When you delay your first coffee by even 45 to 60 minutes, You allow the cortisol peak to pass, and the caffeine doesn't compound the hormonal surge. It simply complements a system that has already started to settle. Your coffee actually works better this way, too. Many people find they feel calmer and more focused rather than wired and anxious. Before you reach for your phone, do something physical. It doesn't need to be a workout. 5 minutes of gentle movement, walking to the window, stretching, stepping outside for fresh air, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the calming branch of your autonomic nervous system, and counteracts some of the morning stress response naturally. This is not wellness influencer advice. This is physiology. The parasympathetic nervous system is your body's built-in pressure regulator, and morning movement is one of the most direct ways to engage it. When it comes to breakfast, reduce the sodium. Ultra-processed foods, even the ones marketed as healthy, are frequently loaded with hidden salt. A single serving of commercial breakfast cereal, a slice of deli meat, or processed cheese can contain 400 to 800 milligrams of sodium before you've reached 7 in the morning. Given that the daily recommended maximum for someone with elevated blood pressure is around 1,500 milligrams, you can see how quickly a normal breakfast eats through that budget. Choose foods that are real, whole, and minimally processed. Your arteries will feel the difference faster than you expect. And when it comes to your phone, I'm not asking you to abandon it. I'm asking you to delay it. The first 20 minutes of your waking life are neurologically precious. Your brain is in a state of transition between sleep architecture and full wakefulness. Flooding it immediately with incoming information, demands, conflicts, and news puts your stress response into high gear before your hormonal baseline has had a chance to stabilize. That delay costs you nothing except a small shift in habit. It gives your cardiovascular system an enormous gift. The morning you have been living may feel normal because everyone around you is living the same way. But normal and healthy are not the same thing. In cardiology, we see the downstream consequences of normal every day. We see the patients who did everything that society told them was fine, and who still end up in an emergency room at 55 with a heart attack that, in retrospect, was years in the making. I'm not telling you this to generate fear. I'm telling you because the alternative, small, deliberate, well-timed adjustments to the way your day begins, is genuinely within your reach. Robert, who I told you about earlier, made those changes. His ambulatory blood pressure monitoring 6 months later showed morning readings that were, on average, 21 points lower than before. He told me his headaches had disappeared. He said he felt calmer at work and slept better at night. He hadn't changed his job, his relationship, or his diet dramatically. He had changed his morning. That was enough to shift the trajectory. Maria, the retired teacher, stopped having episodes of morning arrhythmia within 2 months of modifying her routine. Her cardiologist was monitoring for other causes. I was watching her morning pattern. The pattern was the answer. David, the accountant, eventually reduced one of his 2 blood pressure medications under medical supervision because his controlled readings gave his physician confidence to adjust the dose, not because he ran a marathon, because he drank water first and waited 90 minutes for his coffee. These are not miracle stories. They are what happens when you understand the mechanism and make changes that align with how your body actually works, rather than against it. The habit that this video has been building toward, the one that millions of people are doing every morning without understanding the risk, is not one thing. It is a cluster of behaviors that individually seem harmless, but that, when combined and repeated in the most cardiovascularly sensitive window of the day, create a compounding load on your heart and arteries. Caffeine on an empty stomach. No water. Immediate screen stress. Processed food high in sodium. Daily. For years. That is the habit. And it is so universal, so ordinary, so deeply woven into modern life that questioning it feels almost absurd. Until you understand what it costs. Your heart does not send you warning letters before it fails. It doesn't book an appointment or schedule a preview. The morning you start protecting is the morning you may never have to look back on with regret. I've spent 22 years watching people get that second chance, and I've watched others who didn't get one. If there is anything in your power to do to be in the first group, it's this: change how your morning starts. If this video reached you today, please make use of it. Share it with someone who drinks coffee the moment they wake up, or someone who hasn't thought about their morning as a cardiovascular event. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss what's coming next. We're going deeper into hypertension management, the silent symptoms most people ignore, and the specific foods that protect your arteries over time. And leave a comment below right now. Tell me where you're watching from, and tell me honestly, does this sound like your morning? Because if it does, tomorrow can be different. And your heart, this extraordinary, tireless, irreplaceable muscle that has been beating for you every single day without you even asking, deserves that chance.